Hello, it's Oopsy Daisy. I'm Ashley.
And it is I, Vanessa. I have a simple message today. I just want you to know a simple message that don't be a racist. This is not a
Yeah.
political pod in any shape or form, but please be a decent human being and don't be a fucking racist.
For context, this has been just a couple. We're filming this just a couple days after George Floyd's murder, and I'm just so fucking enraged.
It's horrible.
I don't understand how it's so hard to have human decency, and I don't understand how people don't understand that this is their norm because it is.
Be decent.
Mm-hmm.
Be kind. Use your white privilege to be good.
I feel like people they get so offended when you say they have privilege. But I mean, because they're like, I'm not rich.
That's not what it
I'm not.
means.
But that's not what that means. It means that the color of your skin does not affect you in any way. Like, it doesn't prevent you from getting jobs, from getting into universities. It doesn't prevent you. Because whether you believe it or not, that actually happens. You have people ragging on some of these people who are saying like Black Lives Matter, being like, oh, all lives matter. Well, no shit, dumb fuck. Yes, all lives do matter, but currently all lives are not at stake right now.
Black Lives
Like,
Matter doesn't mean no one's lives matter. It means you can't just prioritize one over the other.
right, exactly. And I think that's people are purposely mishearing it.
Yeah,
And like, it's just,
it's horrible.
I'm just, yeah, I don't want to start this podcast with such a like a
Serious
deep,
pod.
heavy, serious pod when we're going to be reviewing a Daisy episode, Life with Derek
You know what?
episode
We
right
had to get it out of the
afterwards.
way. It's
Yeah,
are some of our viewers could possibly be affected right now. What's going on? We don't know.
it's yeah, and you know if this it all affects you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that my country, especially right now, it's a piece of shit.
Canada's going through the same thing right now, so
I'm just sorry that people are just freaking idiots and
hmm
they can't get past skin color and even like religions and shit too. I just think it's all stupid as all hell. So, um, and I hope none of our viewers have any opposing thoughts on that.
because if you do, there's the door.
You can easily get off of this.
Moral of the story: be nice.
So again, we don't want to bog this podcast down, especially since I'm sure a lot of you listen to this to be happy or to gain some type of entertainment value towards
We're gonna go funny right
um
now. Comedy pod time. Let's go.
yeah. So all right. So today we are going over the Life with Derek episode Mice and Men. So Vanessa, do you have your own special summary for that?
Yeah, it's very wild. It starts with learning that men are terrified of mice, and women are not apparently. Uh,
Except
Derek.
Kendra.
uh, then we see your girl Kendra, who escaped from Degrassi and is surprisingly not saying hun all over the place. To which Derek likes her, but like wants to be super not a immature person, so he like steals George's clothes. I swear, it's too big for him. Uh, and then yeah, more mice show up. It's cool.
More
And
mice show up.
and serial killer Casey up in here. Let me tell you.
Did you
Let me
take
tell you.
notes?
Huh?
Did you take notes?
No, but I will because I know exactly. It's with Paul. Paul says some
You
shit.
gotta take notes so you don't forget for the TED Talk.
I know.
Alright, so this episode starts with Derek and Edwin running down the stairs shooting water guns at each other.
Wait.
So,
That's one thing I wanted to say. They don't call them
oh,
super soakers, what I thought was funny.
what do they call them?
I don't know. I don't remember what it was, but they were like, "We can't use super soaker. That's a trademark name."
Right.
It was like, oh my god, I don't even remember what it was. It was
Super
so bad.
wetters.
Oh, that's disgusting.
So, so Casey, of course, yells at Derek to get out since she's trying to read. And Derek wants to shoot her with the water gun then. But George comes inside and he gets in the way and he breaks it up. And George is yelling at Derek, saying that he shouldn't have to tell him not to play with water guns in the house at his age, and that he needs to grow up. But he like one of the things we was like Edwin's 12. I feel like by 12 you should already know too that you shouldn't be playing with water guns in the house.
Yes, that is
If
true.
you were Marty, it'd be another thing, but Edwin's old enough too.
It's true, but we say this, but in every like movie or TV show, there's always some sort of water fight happening. Like they have like a hose connected to the sink, and they're like,
Oh
"Oh,"
yeah.
so it doesn't even matter.
George is telling Derek all of this, and Casey's behind George's back, like putting in these little like, "Yeah, Derek," and like all this other stuff, while she's like trying to hide herself from Derek. Um, but then George takes the water gun from Derek, and then I think he goes off to like shoot Edwin in the kitchen.
Yep,
So I don't even know if they left the house for that.
probably not.
It's just like, George, you're not even practicing what you're preaching at all, man. So Derek and Casey then take seats in the living room, and Derek tells Casey that he doesn't need to grow up since he shaved twice in the last, like, what, week or 2 weeks or
He
something
said
like
the
that.
last week, and then Casey gave him a look, and he's like, "Month, fine, month."
So it's like, but my thing was like, why are you telling Casey this, Derek? Do you want her to think of you as manly?
Yeah, apparently he's mature. He shaves.
Why do you want to know? Like, why do you have to tell Casey this? Why are you trying to prove anything to her?
I don't know.
You know? So, okay. So then Casey then just tells him he's immature. But he says it's a choice. It's a state of mind. And then Derek then sees a mouse in the living room and he goes ballistic. And he's scared. And he like jumps up on the couch. Though I do find it interesting that Casey didn't freak out and that like she's not afraid of mice. I think that's so like not in character for her.
It isn't. No, it just shows that like for some reason the Venturi men are terrified for some reason. To which the McDonald women are like, whatever. Which makes no sense. I think out of everyone, Casey should be losing her shit the
Well,
most.
yeah, because like I understand Lizzie would not be afraid of them because she's environmental and all about animals and everything. I could even see Nora just kind of being like, eh. But for Casey to not be freaking out at all about the mouse in the house is kind of just like, really. It's just something I wouldn't expect from her. And I don't understand why the Venturis men especially are so afraid of mice. Like, what is the story behind that? Because Marty's not afraid, but all the men are. So so did something happen before Marty was born that involved mice?
Probably. Maybe they got
I
like
need to know
attached.
that story. Did they get like infested with this whole shitload of mice one day?
Hmm. I wonder. Yeah, they must have been like overwhelmed because now they're like, oh yeah, they just come in during the winter, blah blah blah. What if like there was like a wave of them one year and that's why, and it was before Marty was born, so all the men have like Vietnam flashbacks.
I I could see it. It would make sense at least why they're so scared of it. Because I've had mice in my house from time to time. We lived up in like the mountains and like it gets cold there. So you would have a mice or two like running around here or there. And like I don't like them, but they didn't necessarily freak me out unless like they were to like run over my feet or something. But, it's just I don't know. In the blue screen, she describes Derek as Mr. Chills. And, and she's Miss Freakout. Like she's like, generally we're this. But then she says that whenever Derek does lose his cool, she has to milk the moment for as long as she can. And this is sociopath. I think this is her being like the sociopath here. Like, she has to milk these moments as much as possible. And she is damn, like, mean for most of this episode.
She is. She really is. And Paul will talk about that, and that's where my big serial killer thing is.
So then it cuts back to Casey and Derek in the living room, and she's already saying that she wants to tell everyone that Derek is afraid of a tiny little mouse. She even pretends to see it again to scare him. And then, because Casey laughs, Derek then tells her that she better watch her back.
Watch your
Only
back.
for Casey then to be like, oh, "No, mouse for real," and then he like flips up over his seat, his chair. Like, I know Derek's a pain in the ass, but like if you're really petrified of something, Casey, you shouldn't be making fun of that. Okay.
Yeah. I just love how Derek's just there, and he's like, "You watch your back." It sounds so menacing. When two psychopaths they butt heads together. That's what you
Hmm.
get.
So at school, Casey goes up to Emily's locker, only for Kendra, played by Lauren Collins, famously known as Paige from Degrassi. It is so weird to see her on the show whenever she's on.
Yeah, every time. See, growing up, I didn't really watch Degrassi when I was younger. Uh, there was a show on Disney or Family that was called it was called In a Heartbeat, and it was my soap opera. And it was like kids at a high school that apparently it's based on a true story in the States somewhere, that they were like EMTs. There was like a program for kids that they could, because it was a small town, they didn't have enough like first responders or whatever, so like kids were trained to drive like the ambulances and like do all the things you have to do, and she was in that show, so that's where I know her from. So going into Degrassi, I was like, hey, isn't that chick from the thing? And but no,
I
so
know her
yeah.
from Degrassi.
Yeah, but now I know her as the chick who says hun way too much.
Listen, hon.
Hun. Hun, 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 hun.
Kendra, she comes to interrupt, asking which one of them is the super keener. Uh, Also, me and Vanessa ended up watching some of this episode at the same time,
Yeah.
and so Vanessa was like, "Oh my gosh, the girl who plays Kendra looks so much younger than Casey."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I think Kendra looks older than Casey."
To which I immediately had to Google. I'm like, who is the oldest? Who is lying here? Well, they're the same age. But I still stand by what I said. Casey looked, I don't know if it was just that the scene they were in. I guess maybe I felt like Kendra's face, just the shape of it maybe, made her look younger in that moment. And Casey's made her look older, but I was like, yo, Kendra's like supposed to be a year older than them in this, and she looks like a baby compared to Casey. And Ashley's like, nah, fam. Not fam.
So who do you think looks older? They're both the same age, but who do you think looks older? That's the question. So, so yeah. So Casey then says she's not a super keener. To which Kendra was like, all right, well, then who's the regular Keener? And Casey was like, I guess me, but we like to have fun too. Homework can be fun.
Yeah, no.
And Kendra's just like, yeah, so you're her. And then Kendra reveals that she needs a partner for the poetry project since she needs to do well. And Casey's about to turn her down because she's always partner with Emily, but Emily pulls her aside and insists that Casey be Kendra's partner because Kendra is the most popular girl in the grade above them. And Emily wants in with their like lunch tables and parties. And then Emily was saying like her Keener rep is like still reflects badly on her rep. So like, she wants Casey to do this.
Classic Emily.
Mm.
Emily's
So then
coming
Casey,
back.
yeah, you're doing so well, Emily.
Yeah, you're doing so well. Now you're like, Casey, my coolness is at risk. Two-faced bitch, Emily's back.
Mm-hmm. So Casey agrees, and Kendra tells her to meet her at lunch. So at lunch, it starts off with like Emily sucking up to Kendra and her friend, being like, "Where did you get that shirt? I love it." Um, and you get this close-up shot of Casey, and then you see Derek behind her shoulder as he looks over there at Casey. And this shot is used so much in fan vids.
Mm-hmm.
I love the shot itself. It's just such a cool shot. I love it. And then Casey just wants to talk about the project, which seems to bore everyone there. And as Casey's about to take a bite of her sandwich, and in something I think is very uncharacteristic of her, she starts talking with her mouth full. Did you notice that?
You're
Because she
right.
takes a bite of the sandwich and she's like, oh, and she starts talking with this stuff still like out of her mouth.
Yep.
And then she's just like, ah! Because,
Ew.
like,
It was
well, she
wild.
didn't scream that wild, but she was still like, because she feels like there's a worm in her sandwich. And she spits it out, and of course, Kendra and all are like, what the hell are you doing? Like, ew.
Can I point out a story real quick? It has to do with a
Sure.
worm and foom. Um, my sister put a legit worm in my ice cream when I was a child.
Ugh!
I didn't know.
What the hell is wrong with your sister?
I don't know. I don't know. Uh, it was when I was like super young, like I don't know, like 3 or 4 or something like that.
What?
Listen, it's okay. I'm alive. I'm still
You're
alive.
alive, but barely.
So I didn't know. So I devoured my ice cream, and then she didn't
Oh.
tell me till after that there was a worm in my
Oh,
ice
how did you
cream.
not like? I know you were young, but how do you not like realize something's off about the ice
Uh,
cream?
Listen, I love
Did you have
chocolate
like
ice
Rocky
cream.
Road or something?
I love chocolate ice cream, so I just demolished it. I didn't ask questions.
Mm.
She did not ask permission. She only asked for forgiveness. That's all you need to know.
Okay. Ugh. Yeah, so Casey's making this scene in the lunchroom, and Derek all cockily like strides up, asking if there's a problem, and then takes the worm and takes a bite of it. And he does that in like such a weird way. Slowly takes a bite out of it. And Kendra then asks him, "Is like, oh, eat worms much?" And Derek's like, "Oh, only the gummy kind."
It was disgusting. I mean, you could tell it was a gummy bear like the second he picked it up.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
like
no, like even
that
this,
fucking big.
even within Casey's like freaking sandwich, you can tell it was like a fake like
Yeah,
worm.
because a gummy worm is not like super small like a real worm. It was like fucking huge.
Yeah. So I mean, I've seen big worms, but nothing like that.
Yeah.
Because they used to be on like we had a track outside our school that we would walk around during recess a lot of the times, and they would just be littered with like worms sometimes, and they'd be like pretty long.
Yeah, I've seen some huge ones, especially when they move. It kind of like they move, and then like when they're moving, it looks like that worm part where they're moving gets huge, and then it like it's worms are creepy.
They are.
They're kind of
Because even
gross.
when like even if like they get like separated, they sometimes still move
Yeah, that's because
because
they can still like live.
they don't have like nerve endings or anything like that. I think
Yeah. Well,
so.
they
It's like
they could
really
pretty much.
disgusting.
Don't they like? Can't they like live if they get like cut in half and shit?
I think
I mean,
like I
they
think you would have
eaten
to
shit out
literally
of both
that.
ends.
I would think you would literally have to like kill the like the head part of it to kill
We
it.
just you can't even tell which ones because they can shit and eat out of both ends anyway. So it's creepy.
Ugh. So anyway,
Anyway, worms are wild.
of mice and men and worms are wild.
Yeah, worms are wild.
um, so then Casey tells him it wasn't funny, and Derek says you told her to watch her back. So that was what he was saying. Like that's his revenge for making fun of him with the mice. And as Derek's leaving, he then looks back, seemingly at Kendra, since she's also looking his way too. But did you hear the freaking music that was playing?
I have
Whenever
like
they would like see each other or something, it'd be like dun, 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 dun. I don't know. It was like some weird music.
yeah, like for some reason I'm thinking like of something completely different. Like I know it wasn't that music, but have you seen the movie oh, is it She's All That?
Yeah.
For some reason I'm like getting music from that movie. Like I don't even know which one it is. I know what it is, but I can't think of the name. It's like at the end, I think, when, that all thing happens. It's when they're together. But yeah, that's what it was like in my mind when it was playing and I'm like this isn't the actual song. Get out of here.
But it's just very dramatic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, exactly.
it goes on, and I'm like, why? Why? I mean, obviously, you want to show there's been a connection, but it's just so like, oh, okay. So then Kendra asked Casey, "Oh, is Derek your brother?"
Like I thought this was a known fact already.
People are slow in the school. I don't know,
We've
but
discussed how weird this school is.
in some ways, they're very fast because they know Casey is like this super keener for the most part, but then they don't know that they're like related at all in any regards. Like,
But here's the thing, cuz didn't Derek like step up to her, not step up to her for her and like was like stop making fun of her. It's my
was that
sister.
only for their grade?
Yeah, well, he's super popular, so I'm pretty sure that would have spread like wildfire. So Kendra is either like slow or she showed up after the fact and just
I
became
think that
super
could
popular.
happen where she came in after all this stuff. So like she's only heard because she doesn't even seem to know Derek.
Yeah,
Like
she
Derek
might have
seems like so
transferred.
new to him. So I feel like she's came in like earlier that year and like already became popular and everything. So she's still learning everyone and everything. And she doesn't know she because even then she was like, "Which one's the keener? Like you should know by now, Kendra."
Exactly. I think she just transferred in a week ago, but she's super popular.
Yeah. Wow. So she left Degrassi.
Yeah, she left Degrassi and was like, I have to leave. I'm leaving. We're moving to Ajax together. But no, we're going to London. Hun.
Hun, I'm gonna change my name and everything.
I'm going to change everything about me.
So Casey then informs her that no, it's step brother, that there's no genetic link. Because that's important. Very important.
Yes.
And Kendra tells her that this poetry project just got a little more interesting. And
Oh
then
my.
and then Casey and like Emily both like looking and they're like, "Oh no. Oh no." So then the next scene is Casey and Emily walking in the hallway, and Emily's like, "I should be the one hanging out with Derek. I mean, working on the project at your place." Just showing your true intentions there, Emily.
Give me strength.
But Casey's like, "Yeah, um, because it's one thing to use me for my brains, but to use me to get Derek, that's personal.
Wouldn't it be like the opposite?
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be personal because they're using you because you're smart and you'll get them like a good grade? The other one doesn't really affect you, but it's Casey and she doesn't know shit apparently. All her wires are crossed, so I don't know.
Well, because she considers Derek hers, so
True. Very true.
So Emily's just basically like, then dump Kendra. Tell her you can't do it. And she was like, oh, but no, I can't because I already made a commitment. And
And
then
because you'll
she's like,
kill me, because you won't be popular, you'll leave me and I'll have no
well,
friends.
so she's like, I'm just going to have to get Kendra to focus on the project itself. So then they're at the Venturi house. And Marty and Nora and George are doing some craft thing on the coffee table in the living room when Marty suddenly sees one of the mice. But she looks over and she was like, oh no, Lizzie's gerbil got out. But Nora's like, oh, Lizzie's gerbil died. Rest in peace for that little gerbil that I think we only saw in the pilot.
I don't even remember the gerbil.
Yeah, because I remember her playing with it while they were in the room, while her and Casey were sharing the room, I believe.
I don't even remember.
Yeah, we might have seen it once or twice more, but I think we definitely just saw it in the pilot. But anyway, rest in peace, little guy. Um, but so Nora's saying that the gerbil died, and then Marty's like, "Well, then it's Walking Dead."
Wait. Hold your horses. Did Marty like just tell the future of like one of the hugest like TV shows ever? It's Walking Dead, yo.
I'm assuming that it's a phrase that people use anyway. I don't know, because like it was a comic book series before the television show actually started, so I don't know when those were made either.
I mean, I
But
wasn't a fan of the show for some
I watched
reason.
it for a couple. I watched it for a good handful of seasons, and then once they killed one of the people, Glenn, off, I couldn't
I
anymore.
know who that is. I know him. See, I'm a weird person. I don't really get into fads for TV. Like everyone's like, "Oh my god, Walking Dead, the greatest show," and I'm like, "Eh." Oh my god, Game of Thrones, and I'm like, "Eh."
I watched that, and it turned out sucky. So,
Sorry, your stupid dragon show ended stupidly.
because I'm not into those kind of shows either, but when I actually started watching, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. But then it's just like it gets
I
ridiculous after a
think
while.
the only show like that I get like that is probably Sons of Anarchy. That's about it.
Mm,
That's a
I
good
haven't
show.
watched that.
That's a good show. Me and my mom love that show.
I think my brother watches that.
It's good. You should watch it. And we can discuss it.
So the Nora actually then sees the mouse, and she's like, "Oh, that's not Walking Dead. That's a very live mouse."
Uh-oh.
So George is like, "Oh, they just come every winter. Like, is that fine with you?" And Nora's like, "Oh yeah, me and the girls, we're not afraid." And George is like, "Cool, cool, 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 cool." And then the mouse kind of like runs near him, and he's like, and then he's like, "Maybe we should get an exterminator."
Like, I thought that wasn't an issue. They just come here for the
Right.
winter, George. Why are you losing your shit? Is it because the women are braver than you?
Right. But also, this is a parallel between Jorah and Daisy.
Oh, God. Your favorite ship, Jorah.
Uh, Jorah. You gotta love him, guys. You gotta
Wait,
love
wait,
him.
wait. But we can't forget about your even most favorite ship, which is Deadwin.
Galuka.
Deadwin. You constantly say Deadwin.
Oh, God, Deadwin. Jesus.
But yeah,
No.
and there's also Skaluka. Love me some Skaluka.
Skaluka.
Let's
Oh my
pause
god,
for
I
a
was
second.
editing that. I was editing that last night, and I was cracking the hell up while I was listening to.
Let's remember about how the time that literally yesterday you're like, "Hey, isn't this guy's name Luca?" And sends me a picture of her like
Oh my
fucking
god,
maniac.
yes.
And then I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Wait." You're like, "You see what I'm pointing out here?" And I was like, "Oh my god." And he was an
Those
actor.
of you who haven't watched it, there's a documentary on Netflix called Don't F with Cats. And at first, there's this guy in there who has been killing cats on the internet, and then it quickly escalates to the point that he actually kills an actual person.
Mhm.
And his name was Luca Magnotta, I think his name was, right?
Something like that,
And
yeah.
he's from Canada. So,
If you
and in the
recall
podcast, we were saying,
that they hired
yo,
someone and they named it after the dude who played Casey's husband. And this guy's an actor as well, guys. Just saying. He
yeah,
was
he
an
was like a
actor.
model actor trying to make it big and everything.
So not only
We
is
were just
Casey a
like,
serial killer,
oh my
she had a
god.
child with another serial killer and named the
Though he's in
child
jail right
Luca.
now, so I don't think it would
Yeah.
have been possible anyway. But it's still just like freaky.
It's just saying, yes.
Yeah. But again, now I'm never going to be able to listen to the name Luca without thinking of some serial killer. But maybe if it wasn't the fake dad's name, it's because Casey was like, respect.
Respect.
Sociopaths.
Respect. Fist bump. Fist bump explosion.
Because they're both like sociopaths or something.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Why are we like this? um, but okay. So George is like, let's call an exterminator. And Lizzie comes out and she's like, no, 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 you can't do that. Do you know what they do with the mice that they exterminate? And he's like, yeah, they exterminate them. And she was like, well, can we try to figure out a way that prevents that, like you calling the exterminator? George is like, hesitant about it. And Nora's like, well, just let her try. And so George agrees to let Lizzie have a few days to try to catch the mice herself. So she does that basically the whole episode, trying to uh,
You know what?
catch the mice.
This is a missed opportunity to plug the game Mousetrap. Just saying.
Mousetrap.
Yeah. I've never played it in my life because anytime I'd go to a friend's because they have it, there was always a piece missing. Therefore, I could never play the game. But as the name says, it's a mousetrap to catch mice. So they missed a chance to shamelessly plug a board game to catch the mice in their house. Just saying.
Um, I don't think I've ever played it. I think we got it, but no one wanted to help me build the traps, the contraptions, so it just never
Yeah.
got played.
I never got the opportunity because always there was always a piece missing, and so I never got to play the game, and I'm very sad.
So
Even to
yeah,
this day.
got missed that opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. Mousetrap! It's a crazy contraption. The something, the something. It's a
you know
mousetrap!
from the one other podcast you were talking about, tuna is the chicken of the sea.
Yeah.
I remember Jessica Simpson had said something about that on her show.
There you go.
Because
Tuna, the
she
chicken of
was
the sea.
she was eating tuna, and then
Hmm.
she turns to her then husband Nick Lachey, and she was like, is this a fish or chicken?
I'm telling you!
And then he's like, are you serious right now? And she's like, well, the thing says chicken of the sea. So,
There you go. I don't
but
just
I
say
just
random shit.
remembered that the other day because I saw someone like posted a parody of her music video that also highlighted it. And I was like, oh my god.
See, I don't just say random shit. It makes sense.
I mean, you do, but
Get out of here! Don't you shame me!
okay. So back to the episode. So in Casey's room, she's with Kendra and she's reading all these poems to Kendra while Kendra is just like chilling on her bed, bored out of her mind. Then as Casey's on her computer, it just turns off. And it's because someone pulled the plug with a hockey stick. Since for some reason her door was slightly open, I don't know why she would do that. Like you're trying to have to like study by themselves, and yet she kept the door open. I can understand that for Derek because he's Derek. They don't trust him. But do they also not trust Casey to not put the moves on Kendra or something?
Hey man, listen, I once saw a fic. I think I mentioned it in the past, like thousands of episodes ago, until they have 1,000 episodes. Um, that there was a fic once where I think everyone was
Who's
gay
gay?
except Edwin. So like Derek and Casey were bi, Marty and Lizzie were gay, but Edwin was the only straight one. So that's probably why. That's why they don't trust Casey.
Okay, Casey. Wow. All right. So then Casey yells, "Damn Rack!" and leaves
I
to go
love it.
after him, only for Derek to come out of Lizzie's room right after she goes down the hall. And Kendra sees him and begins talking to him. But he apparently didn't even know Kendra was in the room since he seemed shocked and suddenly love struck.
Yeah, and he can't
He's
talk.
he starts babbling like a freaking idiot. He's like, "Oh, the hi, yeah."
Is it like the first and only time he does that?
I think so. I don't know if he did it with Sally or anything.
Again, I know her from another show.
But yeah, so he starts like acting like he can't speak, talk, or whatever. He's stuttering, which again, I find it super weird that he's suddenly like this. Because you see how he's all like suave with all the other girls, and maybe it's because he doesn't really like them.
Suave.
What?
Suave. That's
Whatever.
so lovely. You're my
Suave.
favorite. You're my favorite.
Mm hmm. He's all suave with all the other
Watch
girls that he
watch me
comes.
be wrong. Watch me be wrong. Someone's gonna line in and be like, "It's not suave. It's actually suave."
What is it? French? So you'd probably have a better idea about that than I would.
It's Latin. I don't know. It's derived from the Latin word suave.
It's without the. Yeah, you're
Oh,
right.
hell yeah! Go Vanessa.
So then, okay. So then Casey then barges back in. She was like, "Derek, get out! You better hope that my work is still on that computer." So then, as he's leaving, he's like still so out of it and nervous that
Wait,
he
wait,
walks
wait, wait,
into
wait, wait.
her like bookcase.
He unplugged the computer, which we know is a laptop. Does it not have a battery life?
But also, why is your thing across the room?
Exactly. Is your plug that long that it like goes across your bookcase and shit? But it's a laptop. There's no way that would have turned off the laptop unless you
She has a
removed
really
the.
shitty laptop that relies on its battery right now,
I
okay?
was gonna say, is it the ones that you like actually remove the internal battery so it has to stay plugged in constantly?
Yeah. They're cheap like that, so I could see them like hanging on to these
They're like,
laptops until they're
our
like
yeah,
dead,
they're like the
dead.
battery's dead. Okay, well we can replace it. It'll cost this much. No, just remove it altogether.
Yeah, so Derek's starting to leave, but he walks into a bookcase. And then just before he leaves, he's like, bye bye. And even when he's leaving, he's like, bye bye? What the hell is that? Like, so then as Derek leaves, Kendra then turns to Casey and she was like, so is Derek single? So then we're back in Casey's room and Derek comes in and asks if Kendra said anything about him. She tells him that Kendra thought he was immature.
Hmm.
So then it cuts to Derek's room, and he's just like chilling on his bed reading comics, and George comes in. And he tells Derek that all the things he asked him to do this week, like clean the garage, pass his French test, and stop bothering Casey, he hasn't done. And Derek's like, I thought these were suggestions, not orders. And George tells Derek that he's time to grow up. He can't be four forever. Like, he can't act like he's four forever. And Derek's like, well, at least I act older than Marty.
No, that's debatable.
Which George says.
Yeah, debatable.
So George leaves, and Derek turns on his music, and he starts thinking about Kendra, and then he like hallucinates her in his room.
I'm telling you, the guy's like nuts. His whole family is nuts.
And Kendra, his hallucinating, like, Kendra is like, wow, you're so immature. So he gets up and he just like starts messing with his hair to look more groomed, and he like buttons his shirt, and he's like, oh, I gotta shave.
But yeah, but you only shave twice in the month. Maybe he's trying to like shave more to make hair growth more. I don't know. Isn't that a thing
A myth.
people
I think
always
it's a myth.
said? They're like, if I shave my face more, my hair will grow more. Poor
Yeah,
Derek.
I think it's kind of a myth. But anyway.
Edwin has more facial hair.
Oh, yeah, Jesus. Okay, so next morning, George is banging on Derek's door to get up because it's going to be late. But Derek appears behind him. He's all dressed and showered, and he's sporting this super keener look. His hair's all pushed to the side, and he's wearing this, like, sweater. I don't even know what that is.
It's like clearly from George's closet because it's like way too big for him. He
Yeah,
swims in it.
he does. He really does. So, and he did try to shave, which you can see because he has that, like, thing of toilet paper on his chin because he obviously like cut himself shaving.
Yeah.
So then both George and George, both George and Edwin are confused at first, but George like, oh, he actually took my advice, and he was like all proud and everything. He's like, and I feel so bad for George. Like,
Yeah. Well, he goes through like the whole episode thinking
mm-hmm,
that it was all him.
mm-hmm. So then they show downstairs, and Casey's downstairs. She's trying to find her sweater. And Derek comes down. He's like, oh, I think I saw it in the bathroom. And Casey's like, what did you do? Did you do something? And then he's like, no. And then she's just like, if you dipped it in the toilet bowl.
Ugh. I think he would
So she goes
realize that.
upstairs to get it. And then while she goes upstairs, Derek goes over to Lizzie and Marty. He's like, can I help you ladies with anything? And then he starts helping Marty put on her coat and like her backpack. And Marty's like, what happened to you? Are you like the real Derek? And Lizzie's just like, oh, what if he's like a zombie Derek? And they like run away from them. And Derek's just like, you girls have a lovely day.
I have a theory.
Okay.
I have a theory about mature Derek.
Okay.
I say this with air quotes. Um, we already discussed I don't even know how many episodes ago. Let's just say multiple. Okay, so remember when we said how like Derek acts dumb
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't show like his intelligence? What if mature Derek is like actual Derek?
Ooh. Which is why he'd be able to sell it so convincingly.
Mm-hmm. Because he's using big words. He has vocabulary.
Yes.
He knows
Yes.
how to use. He knows vocabulary.
So, okay, so obviously George and Nora are looking at Derek like he's just spouted another head. They're like, what is going on? And George's like, well, I think he took my advice last night. And Nora's like, George, this kind of stuff doesn't happen overnight. And Derek, like, as they're talking, Derek also puts on this, like, fancy looking coat,
Like a
which
blazer or
again
whatever.
is like George's, I think.
Yeah, he literally went into George's
Yeah,
closet
it's like
and
a
stole it all.
blazer, instead of his leather jacket. And Casey then comes back downstairs, and she was like, it's fine. Like, she was really not expecting it to be completely fine, which,
Oh,
I
so
mean, that's valid.
I love how she comes down and he's like, "Oh, so that's what coral looks like."
Yeah, she's like, it's a lovely color on you. And she's just like, what in the world has happened? Like, her brain is about to explode.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just can't with mature Derek. I really can't. He's
I know
just
you can't.
Derek then is like, well, I have to get to school. I have to get there early to catch up on some things. So he leaves, and Casey's like, oh, I know why he's acting like this. So at school, you see Derek go up to Kendra, and he asks her how her morning is, and she's complaining about a test. And Derek's like, well, maybe parents are right. Study now, fun later. And she's just like, why? What? And Derek then asked if she would like to study at the library in the evening. So she's like, is this a study day? And he's like, oh, well, I assure you,
It'll be more
this will be
study.
more study than date. But yes. Uh,
I love it. He's using such words that he never could comprehend before.
well, just in the way he says them, too.
Yeah.
It's just like, you don't have to talk like that and still be mature. But, okay. So at dinner, it's like very quiet, and George is like, "Do you hear that?" And everyone's like, "No, I don't hear anything. No." And he's like, "Peace." So he doesn't want anyone to talk at all at the dinner table. Like, is that what he's trying to infer?
Yeah,
Because that just seems like a boring ass dinner. I don't know.
it does. It really does. Do you ever have like I had my dad who he got mad whenever me and my sister would be at the dinner table and we'd be laughing. He'd be like, "Stop." And I'm like, "Excuse?" Was growing up,
No,
that's how it was. So he was like if we got too rambunctious by laughing, he'd get upset. So George is like, "Peace." And I'm just like, "No."
no, we're all loud and obnoxious and just yeah.
That's how we are now because he's no longer here. He's no longer part of the family.
But yeah, that's we were never like that because especially my grandfather, he was so loud and just like he didn't give a shit. He'd be like, "What?"
That's because he couldn't hear. He couldn't hear, so he had to scream.
Well, that was part of it, yes, but
Oh my god, you guys have something in common. You guys have hard of hearing.
shut up.
I'm kidding, but I'm right.
So Derek's all sitting tall and everything, and he just like looks like such a dork while he's sitting at the dining room table, and he's like, "More chicken? For anyone want more chicken?" So then Derek says, like, oh, well, can I be excused? I have a study date with Kendra. And Casey's like, what? That Kendra should be over, like, at their house working on the poetry project. And Derek's like, well, maybe she just wants to hang out with someone more mature. So then as Derek leaves, Casey was like, oh, I know. He's just acting mature because he wants to impress Kendra. And George is like, but I
No.
thought he took my advice to heart. And Nora's like, I'm sure that's part of it, honey. Right, Casey? And Casey's like, yeah, yeah, of
I
course.
hate it so much.
Yeah. But then Casey's like, we can't keep up this act forever because you can't fake maturity forever. And
That's because
Edwin's
he's
like,
not
well, yes, you
faking,
can.
Casey.
Well,
He's
yeah.
not faking. This is real Derek. Get used to it.
But then Edwin says that, yes, you can fake maturity forever because George's been doing it for years.
That's true.
These kids burn George so bad.
They're so savage.
um, so then the next day at school, Kendra goes up to Casey and hands her like some of this work that she did for the poetry project while she was at the library the night before. And Casey's like, you actually studied? And Kendra was like, oh, yes. He wouldn't even let me talk because it would go against the library rules or something. And Casey's like, Derek, following rules? And Kendra said that her parents would have been so proud, but she was so bored. And Casey says to forget about him, let's just finish our project. And Kendra agrees and says, like, we should do it at my house so my parents can see me studying and then she can be away from Derek. So then Casey goes to Paul's office and she starts telling Paul how funny this whole thing is that she had told Kendra that that she had told Derek that Kendra thinks Derek's immature and all this stuff. And then when she actually reveals that Kendra actually likes immature guys, Paul's like, ooh, uh. He's like, don't you think that's kind of mean? And she was like, but Derek is always doing this stuff. And he was like, yeah, that's mean, but this is meaner. And then she was like, he's like, because like, what if she actually likes this girl? And she was like, that's not possible. It's like, Derek only cares
Denial.
about one person. And Paul's like, that kind of reminds me of someone else I know.
Welcome, serial killer Casey being called out. There it is. Looking out for number one.
Do you think in like Paul's files, he like that he like goes
Yo.
through every day, he has like future like sociopath right here.
Probably. He probably like has these detailed notes where it's like, if something happens, it's Casey.
If there's a murder on campus, it's probably Casey.
Yeah, if Derek dies, Casey.
Definitely, if he dies, I think she'd be a prime suspect.
It's like he just had a heart attack and fell down the stairs. Paul's like, actually produces like a fucking manuscript. It's like Casey did it.
Ugh. She would though. My gosh. At home, Derek stops Casey as she's leaving her room. And he asks her if she's meeting up with Kendra. And she says yes, but they're going to meet over at Kendra's since she was bored to tears from their study date. And then all of a sudden, Derek kind of like looks at her and he's like, was that her exact words? And you
You
can
look so
see him kind
sad.
of getting choked up and everything. And Casey kind of picks up on it. And she's just like, I mean, maybe that wasn't her exact words. Maybe she didn't say boring. And he was just like, forget it. Casey then asked him, like, do you actually like Kendra? And he's like, you know me better than that. And he leaves. But Casey obviously can tell that maybe he did really like Kendra. So she calls Kendra on the phone and she's like, hey, why don't we actually do the project over at my place? And then she assures Kendra that Derek's not going to be there. Then we see in the kitchen, Derek is looking a lot like himself now. He's wearing his regular clothes and has his hair styled the way he usually has it styled. And he's dipping cookies into milk
Yeah, like
and
a
drowning
mature
in his
man.
sorrows.
Like the mature men, it's what they do.
Yep. And then George comes in and, he said, like, oh, well, tell me about the girl. And Derek is like, I don't try to impress girls. But then he admits he tried to impress Kendra and that he blew it because she thought he was boring. And George says, like, as much as I enjoyed the peace and quiet, maybe you should go back to being yourself because you are definitely not boring. So Derek, he's like, okay. And then Casey and Kendra are in the living room at this point, and Casey's like, ooh, I'm going to pull a prank on Derek since he's going to be coming home soon. And so she pulls out a fake mouse that's like on a line, and she throws it out. And then almost automatically, Derek comes in and acts all awkward around Kendra. And Kendra's like, oh my god, you told me he wasn't going to be here. Ugh. And then he goes to leave, but Casey yipes and jumps to the couch, and she's like, oh, mouse! So Derek looks over and is like, you think I'm going to fall for that? You're not afraid of real mice, and Kendra's not afraid of fake mice. Okay, so why do you know that random fact about Kendra?
Right? What if he's been stalking her?
Oh, then that's a point for sociopathic Derek.
Yo,
But,
man.
and then just then, Lizzie comes in with the real mice in a bucket.
Called
And
Mavis. One's called Mavis. That's all I know.
yeah, I don't know who the other one is. And then she's about to take them outside to release them.
Mm-hmm.
When Casey's like, "Oh no, let me see." Then she's looking at, "Oh, they look so cute." But I think they're going to be cold outside. She just dumps them onto the ground.
Yeah! What a weirdo.
And so Derek sees this and he just like jumps up on the couch, and so does Kendra.
I thought
And then
Kendra
so
wasn't afraid.
what the what?
I thought Kendra wasn't afraid of mice.
Fake mice. She's
Oh,
not
see.
afraid of fake mice.
Oh, okay.
Uh so they jump on the couch together, and then they start like half flirting, half teasing each other. It's like, "Oh, you I thought you were going to like, did he say break wind? I don't know what the hell.
He's gonna break when I thought you were gonna fart.
He said something with wind. And, and she
Yeah.
was like, "Well, you
Oh,
don't look that." She was like, "Well,
imagine.
you don't look that macho right now either." And they're just kind of like teasing, flirting, which like Daisy totally does that all the time.
I can't get over that. How you're like, I thought you were gonna fart, Kendra. Oh man. I thought you were gonna fart, Kendra.
So anyway, Casey then was like, "Hey, while I finish up the project, why don't you guys just go and take a walk?" So of course, Kendra's like, "Sure, okay." So as they leave the house, Derek then quickly comes back in, and he's just all nice and soft. He's like, "Casey, thanks." And then he whips out the water gun and is about to like shoot her.
Yeah. The not super soaker.
Yes. This the super wetter.
Stop.
So then the final scene is just kind of like showing you that obviously Derek and Casey, oh no, Derek and Kendra are together.
No, please say what's correct. Derek and Casey are together.
Derek and Kendra are together, and Kendra and Casey, they got an A on their like poetry project. So it's just kind of a swift wrap up scene.
I just love how everyone just uses Casey to get a good at Mark.
I mean, that's why Emily's probably a friend still.
Yeah,
So
she's like, yo, bitch, we can't be cool, but we're gonna get good grades.
yep. So I just want to point out a couple comments we got from YouTube. So we have Z Mythos, and she was like, I also remember the fic where Triple D was explained to be three Ds on Derek's report card. Like that
Yes.
was an explanation.
Yeah.
And then also from someone from YouTube, Filmmaker Dream, the one with Scott the Snot. It's the episode where Derek realized he was in love with his stepsister.
It's true.
But I feel like that may have solidified it, but I think he was starting to realize it during Mail Code Blue when
Okay.
Sam was trying to date Casey.
Okay.
That's what I think. But I just thought it was interesting that they thought this was the episode where
Hmm.
like switch flipped.
It's because he's doing his little manic panic
I'm
attack.
having these
Feelings.
feelings.
That's probably why.
All right, and then lastly, we have a question from Tumblr.
It was
What is
anonymous.
the weirdest Daisy AU we have read?
I have one. It was very bizarre.
I don't
Do you
really
remember?
read many AUs, so I don't really have anything.
Do you remember the story I told you that is much debated and people are trying to find it? Is when Casey made a wish that she never met Derek. Remember that one?
Yeah,
Okay, well there was a different one I read that it was Derek was in like an alternate universe. He somehow went to an alternate thing
yeah.
where the in the family Derek became Casey. Not like body swap or anything, like Derek in that universe was the smarty pants and
Okay.
was not popular, but Casey was. But she was a hoe.
I think I do know this fanfic. I don't know if it's because you told me about it before, or if I actually read it, but like, so the Casey from our time, our universe goes over. I think
No,
maybe
no, no, no. It was Derek.
Derek. Okay.
So Derek goes, and then he wakes up, and he's like, "What the fuck is this clothes?" It was like it was like the George wardrobe clothes for Derek, and he's like, "What
Yeah.
the fuck?" And then Casey like leaves her room, and she's like literally like dressed like a hoe, and he's
What
like,
the
"What the
hell?
fuck?" Yeah, he's like, "What the hell?" And then Lizzie's trying to be like her sister, and he's like, "No, do not." He's like, "This is not right." So he's like trying to like make Casey a better person kind of thing because he's like, "Yo, this ain't right. You can't be like this." But he's also like, "I'm not a smarty pants. How am I supposed to be Casey but Derek kind of thing?" So it was pretty weird. It was good though.
I think I did read some of that. I don't know if it was ever finished.
I don't think it was, no.
And then there was another story I remember reading. I don't think it was ever finished either. Where I can't remember if I think Derek had died,
I love
and
things where Derek dies and then he's just there watching everything.
he's a ghost, and Casey
Yeah.
talks to him. I can't remember the specifics, but that's like a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember one where like Casey got in like a car crash or something, and Casey's ghost was like, "How did I die?" And
It's
she like got
terrible.
ran off the road or some shit. It was bizarre. I don't know, but it was like her ghost and how like she's watching her family cope with her death or something. It's really weird.
Okay, well, I guess that's the end for today. Again, if you have any questions, give that to us on our Tumblr at daisy.tumblr.com or on our Twitter at oopsiedaisypod or in the YouTube comments if you're there, or you can send us a voicemail on Anchor, which all of them,
Be like Rolly
all Rolly.
and Lilac.
You sent us an ask on Tumblr.
Yeah.
Zap.
So 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 be like Lilac and Rolly and send us voice messages because we love them
Mm-hmm.
and we will
Yeah.
put you in the episode.
Yeah. So, okay. So, yeah. I think that's all we can do for today.
Yes.
Until next time. Bye
Stay
bye.
beautiful.